Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. I am kicking off another little mini series here on the show, and this series was born out of frustration, not necessarily mine, but yours and hers. The high-performing woman who sits across the screen from me session after session, smart, brilliant, self-aware, disciplined, curious, tenacious, doing everything right, eating clean, doing the workouts, doing the nervous system work, the meditations, the supplements, the protocols. Yet she's still feeling a little bit exhausted, anxious, bloated, foggy, just flat energy. Like her body is just kind of one step behind the life that she was trying to live. And the kicker, this is what really got me and what really prompted me to do the series. The kicker is that she's gone to the doctor, right? She's done the lab. She's gone to the doctor. And every time it's the same thing. It doesn't matter how many doctors she goes to. Everything looks normal. Everything looks fine. And that word normal was meant to appease her, meant to comfort her, maybe meant to silence her. Like, yeah, you're fine. So stop complaining. And it only made her feel more dismissed, more disconnected from her body, her intuition, her own knowing, because deep down, she wasn't looking to avoid disease. She was looking to feel amazing, to feel alive, to feel like she was thriving, to optimize, to show up for her business, her mission, her family, and herself in a body that would actually hold all of the frequency of the life that she was building. And if you're listening to this might resonate with you. Maybe you've had that experience before in the past. Maybe that's a recent experience for you, but that's where this series begins. And over the next 5 episodes, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what I see just about every single day in my work with female entrepreneurs and female high performers. Functional labs that get missed, blood labs that get dismissed, mineral imbalances that keep you in this cycle of fatigue and frustration, and symptoms that are kind of brushed aside, that are actually these sacred messages that are trying to get your attention, these subconscious and energetic patterns that are written right into your biology and the healing blueprint that's been living inside you all along, just waiting to be remembered. And that's at the crux of the work that I do. So if you've ever walked out of the doctor's office holding labs that say you're fine, or you're just a woman, or you're just getting older, but every cell in your body is whispering, no, I am meant to feel better than this. I'm meant for more than this. Then this series is for you. I want to go beyond the blood work. I want to get you back in your body, and I want you to start rewriting the way that you heal your body as a return to yourself. And so I want to start this first episode. And this first episode, if you have blood labs, I recommend fairly recent, I would say within the last 3 months. I wouldn't go back further than that. If you have blood labs, I'm going to get a little sciencey here in this first episode. So I would say you can totally listen right now, but if you want to come back to it, if you have your blood labs in hand, it might shine some light on some things. So I'm going to go over a handful of different markers. So I'm going to get a little sciencey here, but I think I think it's going to be helpful, and I really wanted to bring this piece out. So I want to start talking about the labs. If I had $1 for every woman I worked with who told me that their doctor had told them that their blood work was fine, I'd have a lot of dollars, first of all. And I can tell you that this story is more common than not. I mean, I dare say that this is probably about 90%, 9 out of 10, the women that I work with, this has happened to them. And it's not for lack of trying, right? She's done everything right. The supplements, the smoothie, she's tried the detoxes, the morning walks, the breath work, the deep breathing, all the things. And they're left with this sense of frustration because they've tried all the things and their body just won't do what they want it to do, right? They're frustrated with their body. They're frustrated with their doctor or their physician or practitioner, whatever it is, because they feel dismissed. They feel gaslit, knowing that something feels off, but no one's really taken the time to figure out why and to figure out like to dig deeper and to ask the right questions and to really listen. Sometimes too, like they're just not listening. And they're telling their doctor about their aches, their pains, their fatigue, their dull skin, their brain fog. And, they're explaining their anxiety, their brain fog. And yeah, I forget why I walk into rooms and it's just brushed off again as hormones, or you're just getting older, or, nothing's showing up on the labs, so you're fine. So this is where I want to start, because what most people don't realize is this about labs. Lab ranges are based on population averages. And let's be honest, the average population is not thriving. The average population is, I just want to not be sick, right? If even that, let's just be honest. So when your TSH is at 3.8 and your doctor says, oh, you're within range, but that range was built to catch disease, not dysfunction. When we're looking at functional labs, we want to look at function, not just disease. That's the difference. People ask me all the time, what do you mean by functional labs? We want to look at function. And so the range that you're looking at from a conventional perspective, from a conventional range, was built to catch disease, not dysfunction. And so for the high-performing women like you listening here, that difference is everything, because I'm not just trying to not be sick. I'm trying to live optimally. I am trying to optimize function in the body. That's the difference. So I want to talk, here's where if you have your labs and you want to pull those out, I want to talk about some markers that often get brushed aside from a conventional perspective and that stand out in the functional ranges. So I mentioned TSH before. So I want to start there because this is a really common one with the thyroid. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. So the conventional range is 0.4 to 4.5. The optimal range, the functional range for optimal optimization is 1 to 2.5. So why does this matter? Because anything above 2.5 can signal early thyroid dysfunction, even if it's not disease yet. It doesn't have to be something that you're ready to be diagnosed with something, but it signals that there is thyroid dysfunction if it's over 2.5. And women with TSH between 2.5 and 4.5 a lot of times are reporting all the common symptoms of hypothyroidism: fatigue, weight gain, hair thinning, low mood, low energy, but they're told they're fine because they're within range. And I started with this one because I can say this is probably the most common one where, I ask my clients a lot of times, have you ever had your thyroid checked? And, if I'm looking at their labs and I'm like, there's things in the labs that I'm looking at that are telling me there's something going on with your thyroid, but they've done the lab work and, oh no, it's within range. Yeah. Well, if it's, 4 and the conventional range is that the range ends at 4.5, then it's still within range, but they're still having all the symptoms. And from a conventional perspective, if you're within range, even if you're experienced and you're showing symptoms, they're probably not going to do anything about it. Or a lot of times what has happened with the clients I have is maybe they'll offer them medication. It's like, well, it's not high enough to be on medication. Why do I want to get medication if there's something else I can do, right? So that's a big one. The next one I want to talk about is ferritin or iron stores, and this is a really common one to measure. The conventional range is 10 to 150. The optimal range is 70 to 100. So here's why this matters. Low ferritin is usually associated with things like exhaustion, fatigue, hair loss, shortness of breath, anxiety, and you can't optimize thyroid or energy production with low iron stores. So these two things are connected, but unless you're anemic, which is your range would be less than 10 because that's the conventional range, no one blinks. No one's going to think twice about it. So and that's a huge difference. I'm going to say this again. The conventional range is 10 to 150 and the functional range is 70 to 100. And you can be experiencing symptoms of low ferritin, low iron stores, and they're not going to do anything about it unless you're anemic. So that's a big one. Vitamin D is another one. The conventional range is 30 to 100, and the functional range is 50 to 80. So you see it's much narrower. Is that a word? More narrow. It's much more narrow, 50 to 80. This matters because basically anything under 40 can impact your immune function, your hormone conversion, like your thyroid. All of this is so much associated with your thyroid, your mood, insulin sensitivity. And a lot of women sitting at like 31 to 35 are told that they're fine. But that's actually low from a functional range. And vitamin D acts as a hormone in the body, which is why it impacts hormone conversion, like your thyroid hormone. We need vitamin D for that. And so vitamin D is affecting how, estrogen, progesterone, or all of your hormones are functioning, but especially thyroid. Now, I want to move on to another one, B12. B12, the conventional range is 200 to 1100. The functional range is 600 to 900. Now, this one matters because when you have low vitamin B, neurological symptoms can show up. Things like numbness, anxiety, brain fog, and this can happen below 600. Even though labs will say that at 300, you're fine. But sometimes people experience this when they're just below 600. And also, the other thing here I want to mention is that some people can't use B12 due to some genetic things. And so stored levels don't often reflect availability. So this one can be really tricky when you're looking at it. Now, a few more here I want to talk about. Fasting glucose. Glucose is another really important marker. And the conventional range is basically anything less than 100. From a functional range, it's 75 to 85. Very narrow range. And less than 100. So this matters because a fasting glucose of 95 to 99 is actually pre-diabetic territory. But if you're getting it on a conventional lab, that it's actually in the normal range. If it's 95 to 99, it's a sign of blood sugar dysregulation, poor metabolic flexibility, and can be a source of major energy drain, especially in women with stress-driven cortisol imbalances, because our cortisol and our insulin, all of these things work together. So your glucose is going to be really affected by how your cortisol is operating. And so, going to the doctor and yours is 95 to 99, they're going to tell you you're fine. And you're like, but I feel all these different things. And, I'm gaining weight or I can't lose weight, right? This is why. Now, I think I have two more or three more. So the next one I'll talk about is insulin. This is fasting insulin. And sometimes this one is not even tested conventionally, but this one is important because fasting insulin greater than 7 can indicate early insulin resistance, even if your glucose is normal. And this is important because this is about being proactive about things. There's a book called, oh gosh, I should have thought about this before. There's a book called, it's Dr. Peter Attia, and it's called, anyway, it's a book about longevity. If you look up, he's got a gazillion followers on Instagram, so you can go give him a follow, but he has books, and I'll put the link to the book in the show notes because that's like escaping me at the moment. But it's pretty dense, but it's this book about longevity, and this is coming from a conventional perspective, mind you, which is why I wanted to read it because I wanted to listen to what he had to say. He's very smart. But this is all about proactive. And he talks about these ranges and he gets very specific with a lot of these, but he's talking about like finding early markers of things. Like if we can catch things beforehand, then now we're not having to fight disease. We can stop it before it happens. And that's what I see here with the insulin, which I wish more doctors tested this, the fasting insulin, but a lot of it is not even tested conventionally. Because when it is greater than 7, this is an early sign. This is a sign of insulin resistance, that you're already headed in that direction. This is such a huge driver of inflammation, and it often goes missed. And it's a huge root cause of so many of the weight struggles and the fatigue that so many of my clients deal with. So if you are getting your blood work done, I recommend requesting that. Requesting the fasting insulin if you're doing your blood work fasting, and you want to look for a range of 2 to 6. That's an important one. Now, 2 more I want to say here, one about the liver and one about electrolytes. So there's the ALT, AST. This is your liver enzymes. The normal range for AST is less than 40, and the normal range for ALT is less than 56. The optimal range for both of these in the functional range is 10 to 26, so much lower than conventional ranges. Now, this matters because normal liver enzymes can mean that your liver is overwhelmed. It's sluggish. It's congested. It's struggling with a detox burden, especially with poor bile flow, estrogen excess, chronic fatigue, right? All of these things can happen when your liver is overwhelmed. And so this one I find this one a lot when I'm looking at my clients' blood labs from their doctors, because again, if you look at the functional or the conventional range, it's much different than the functional range. And so most people's, it just goes unnoticed, like, oh, okay, it's within range. But it really does affect how your body is detoxifying, how it's getting rid of toxins, how it's getting rid of excess hormones, all of those things. And when we're recirculating all those things, it's going to lead to things like chronic fatigue. The last one I want to mention here on your labs is electrolytes. Now, here's the thing. You can get your minerals tested with your doctor, blood minerals. Yeah, the minerals with the blood test. And it's going to tell you, a lot of times it's going to tell you something completely different than what I would see on an HTMA. And that's why I just wanted to mention this one briefly. The HTMA is going to reveal these deeper mineral ratios, and it's going to, this is what's happening at a cellular level and a tissue level versus what's in your blood. And the thing here, especially with sodium, potassium, these are the minerals that help usher other things in and out of the minerals. These are intracellular, especially potassium. Like potassium is intracellular. So looking at it from a blood lab is going to give you a completely different look than looking at it on an HTMA, what I look at. So looking at these ratios is going to show things like burnout, adrenal dysregulation, nervous system exhaustion, immune function, all of these things. And so this is important. This matters because you can be stable with your electrolytes in your blood, but completely depleted intracellularly. That's a tough one to say. Intracellular, in your cells. And the HTMA picks this up. Your blood lab's not going to pick this up. It's not going to pick this up. I've even had clients whose potassium is high on their blood labs, and then I look at their HTMA and I'm like, hold up now, like it's not bioavailable, because if it's high on a blood labs, it's not supposed to be in your blood, right? It's supposed to be in your cells. So this is a totally different thing. So here's the thing. You don't need another doctor telling you that 2.4 or your TSH level at 2.4 is fine. You need someone who understands that your body isn't meant to just function at the edge of dysfunction. It's meant to thrive in optimal alignment. And that's the thing with these blood labs, when you're looking at it from this conventional perspective. Like I said, the ranges are based on averages. So if you're right there on the edge of dysfunction, that's not the vibe. That's not the vibe. We want to live optimally. We want to thrive. And that's what makes all the difference looking at it from a functional perspective. So I want you to pause for just a second and listen in to your body. Can you remember a time that you were dismissed, your symptoms were dismissed, and maybe it was a doctor, a practitioner, naturopath, maybe it was just a friend or a spouse or a family member, a partner, somebody else. But when you felt anxious, exhausted, foggy in your head and your brain, but you were told, oh, it's just stress. Now, I want you to think about this, and I want you to really tune into your body. And this is the first step. I had an interview the other day for this Other Gals podcast that's going to come out later this summer. And we were talking about this because she asked, for the women listening, it's a podcast. It's called Momplex. If you want to go check it out, it's an awesome podcast. She said, for the moms who are listening, who they're like, yeah, this all sounds great, but I don't even know how to get to that point where I can really figure out what my body's trying to tell me. The first thing is just tune in. I know this is not like the big sexy answer that a lot of us are looking for, and it's not the big exciting thing. But what I told her is that if you just I recommend doing it 3 times a day. In the morning, maybe when you wake up or something, in the morning, maybe around lunchtime, and then later in the day. And I say this because your body is going to feel different at different times of the day. So if you're only checking in with yourself in the morning and you're a morning person, you'll be like, oh yeah, I feel great. Not realizing that the afternoon is when you're usually crashing. And then you're like, why do I feel so crappy at 4 p.m.? So checking in, just tuning in. All you're doing is listening to your body, tuning in. Maybe you close your eyes. Maybe you take a couple breaths and just feel, where do I feel resistance, tightness, tension, constriction, pain? Just tuning in. And you're just listening. You're not trying to fix it there in the moment. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to come up with a solution. Just tuning into your body without brushing off things, without dismissing it, without telling it to shush, I'll deal with you later. Like what can you feel into your body, and what do you learn? So I invite you, if you didn't do this before, come back to this and pull up your latest labs if you have them, and just look at them, your TSH, your ferritin, your vitamin D, all the things I talk about, and notice if these things are off. Right? This is the whisper of your body telling you that something. We don't want to be on the edge of dysfunction. This is what's going to tell you. These are some of the things that will tell you that. I think it's time we really start listening to our body. And that brings me to the next point that I want to talk about, because I want to tell you a story about a client first, actually. So I had a client earlier this year that was experienced this feeling of depletion, right? She felt like she had all these kind of random symptoms, random unrelated symptoms, which is a lot of my clients. And that's also the frustrating part, because when you go to the doctor and none of them fit in these little boxes that to be put in to get a diagnosis. So then they kind of just brush you off, or they're like, I don't know. So she had all these kind of random symptoms, or what she thought was random unrelated things. She had trouble concentrating, trouble recovering from a workout, stubborn weight despite doing all the things, of course, trouble getting going in the morning. And then she would feel anxious, but then her anxiety would subside later in the day. So then she's like questioning herself, like, is this a problem? Is this just me? Is this in my head? And she had what I would call functional fatigue, right? She could smile and show up on the Zoom, but then she would crash later. And she could still do what she had to do for the family, all the things, but right, of course, her blood work was fine, because that's the common thread here with majority of my clients. But her HTMA, her hair tissue and mineral analysis, told me the truth. Her minerals were tanked. Her adrenals were flatlined. Her copper was off the charts, had a calcium shell. It was so much calcium build up in her tissues. Like her body had just built like this bunker, like this energetic bunker around her cells. So the last thing she needed was another doctor telling her that she needed to be put on anxiety medication or ADHD medication. Those are the things I hear most often when women have, especially with the calcium shell. So here's what her conventional labs missed that the functional range tested and the functional labs testing caught. Yeah, it caught what I caught when I looked at it. So TSH, right, could be normal at 3.8, but really, from a functional perspective, her cells were asking for thyroid support. Ferritin might be at 30 and told you're not anemic, but your hair's thin, and you're like, well, what the heck? My hair, like, what is this? This is not normal. Vitamin D could be at 35. Hers was at 35, and no one bats an eye, but she's inflamed and she has low energy, right? So the HTMA is going to go deeper, and we did go deeper because it's going to go beyond these just survival markers of, just barely above the threshold of dysfunction. We're looking at your stress chemistry, your adrenal burnout, your metal toxicity, and how all of this, because metal toxicity is going to affect how your minerals are interacting with each other and how they're affecting functionality in the body. We're looking at nervous system regulation and nervous system exhaustion. Are you in an exhausted phase? All of these are going to drain your energy. And so I want you to think about this when I asked you earlier to kind of check in with your body. And if maybe you've been resisting checking in with your body, maybe you should ask yourself, maybe the real question to ask yourself is, what am I afraid of that I'll find if I stop and actually listen to my body? Because I think that's a big piece too. I think that's a big piece. I think sometimes we avoid taking the time to really listen to our body because we're afraid of what we might actually find out, that there is something going on, or I do need to get some help, some support, or I might actually have to slow down and take care of this. I think that's the big thing for so many of us. And the thing is, if we don't choose to slow down and listen to it, to stop and listen to your body, eventually it's going to be like an abrupt halt. It's going to be screaming and yelling, and it's going to end up, and this isn't to like fear monger or be negative or whatever, but this is what happens because I see it all the time. Women who have felt those little quiet nudges for sometimes years and years that they just kind of push aside. And because again, I can still function. I can still function as a human and a mom and a wife and a sister and a daughter and, all the things. But eventually those things are going to compound. And so instead of coming to me with, maybe a few things that are off, now it's this list of 52 things that we have to look at. And it's this whole complex thing we have to unravel. And so I ask that question because I think sometimes, or I ask you to ask yourself that question because I think sometimes that's the thing. And the thing is, it's not about asking like sitting with yourself and asking, if I listen to my body, what am I afraid of? If I actually listen to my body, it's not about figuring out what's wrong with your body. It's just listening to this, to what your body's trying to tell you. It's coming to this with curiosity rather than judgment. And that's something else I talked about in that podcast episode I was just talking about on the Momplex podcast. Was I think that's the other thing is the energy we bring into this of like, well, let me figure out what's wrong with me. It's not about that. It's about curiosity, like these little signs and signals my body's been sending me. What are they trying to tell me? It's just trying to listen to it. And on that note, I want to mention that I have an energy leak locator quiz. You can go to the show notes and check that out. This is how you can start decoding your symptoms through a new lens. and kind of reveal your patterns. So if you go take the quiz, this can also be a first step for you to kind of figure out kind of where on the spectrum am I with these energy leaks that's causing these symptoms, right? Where can I start? So go to the show notes and you can check that out. But the last thing I want to talk about here is how we can outsource our power to the lab results, right? When the truth is that the real wisdom has always been inside of you. It's been inside of your body. And because, especially as women, we've been gaslit, we've been dismissed, brushed aside, and told it's just your hormones, or you're just getting older, or you're just a woman, which I can't even believe that's like a real thing that physicians say that, but they do. And so we've been conditioned to question what's happening in our body. And is this true? Like, am I feeling this? Is it in my head? Maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe this is just part of getting older. We question it. We question ourselves. And so that wisdom that we have inside of us is kind of shoved down. It's still there. Trust me, it's still there, but it kind of just gets shoved down and suppressed. And I'll never forget when I realized that my body had been trying to talk to me for a really long time. And I just been kind of like hushing it, like, shh, no, later, you're fine. You can deal with it. Hushing it, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You hush your body's intelligence and you're like, no, you just be quiet. I'll come back later to you. I'll deal with you later. And it was when I did functional labs on myself, and I considered myself a very healthy person. I was, eating clean, doing a gajillion workouts a week, all the things. And there's a lot going on. My labs said otherwise. And really, when I looked at the labs, I mean, it was a lot of them were very shocking to me. But it was, when I'm looking at it, it was my body saying, like, I can't keep going like this. And that was really what I got from it. I can't keep going like this. Like, something is really going to happen if I don't do something about it. But I had ignored it. I had pushed it away. I had masked it as productivity and ambition. And I once I get blah, 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 then I'll be able to slow down. Once I get blah, 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 once I do this, you just keep pushing the goalpost. You just keep pushing it. And in the meantime, my adrenals were like, hey, hold up. Like, I literally cannot go. I mean, my adrenals were in the toilet. I don't even know how I was functioning at all. And once I saw it and I really reflected on it, yeah, there were signs. There's always signs. There's always signs. Even when people tell you like they have something and then they get the diagnosis, oh, I had no idea. You had an idea. There were signs. You just chose not to listen to them. So it was sitting with that and contemplating that and recognizing, like, yeah, I'm tired because you've been living out of alignment for years. Like, you've been doing this the wrong way. And that's really what kind of cracked the code for me right there and kind of put me on my path to diving into, dealing with what I saw in the functional labs, but then also opening up all these other modalities of healing for myself when I was diving into human design and really learning that about myself and learning what it looked like for me to actually live in alignment so that I could not go back there and my labs didn't have to look like that again. And doing this subconscious work, doing the reprogram. This is why I created the quantum reset. That this is my big signature program. It wasn't to be just another program or another protocol, but this was a new paradigm. And like, this was what I had experienced this myself. Like, this is me bringing my work. This is me as a true 3-line in human design, bringing my work, putting my work out there because it was putting all those pieces together. It's the functional testing to give you the data. It's the human design to look at your blueprint and to be able to honor your energetic blueprint. It's the subconscious reprogramming to really clear what's driving the dis-ease in the body. Because it's not just about, changing the diet and the supplements, all the thing. It's what you release. It's what you're returning to. It's what you're rebuilding from the inside out. It's not just an outside job. Like, this is an inside job. So if your body had a single message for you right now, what would it be? I want you to contemplate this. And this might be something you take with you and journal on later. What would the message for you be right now? Is it, I'm ready to feel light again? Please listen to me and stop ignoring me. I want to feel like me again. I want to feel safe in my body again. What is the single message your body is telling you right now? And whatever it is, just let it land. Sit with it. Don't judge it. Don't judge yourself, because your body is always waiting for you to listen. Because as I said before, the wisdom is always there and your body is always giving the signs and the signals. It's just waiting for you to listen. And sometimes too, it's about decoding or interpreting the language of the body. It's understanding the language of the body, because if we've been suppressing it for so long, it literally is like learning a new language. Like, if you were to go learn a new language, this is the same thing as understanding your body. If you've suppressed it for so long, you've pushed things aside, you've ignored it, you've brushed it off, then maybe you really don't understand. And that's why I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. That's why taking that time, remember I recommended doing it just a few times a day, the morning, sometime in the afternoon, middle of the day, and the evening, to check in with your body. That's the first step. And I know it sounds so simplistic, and I know it might sound silly or dumb or woo or whatever, but this really is the first step, because if you just do that to start and start listening to your body and feeling what's going on in your body, this is how you learn the language. And again, we're not trying to fix it. This isn't you listening to it so you can figure out what to do about it. It's just listening and understanding. That's it. You're learning the language of the body. Now, if you've been doing this for a while and you were really in tune with your body, then now it's time for you to take action. That's the next step, in my opinion, is okay, now I know the language of the body. I understand what it's telling me. I understand what's happening with, my energy or my mind function and, all the things. And so now maybe it's time to ask for support. So listen to what your body is telling you. That's really what I want to leave you with on this episode, because as you can see with all these things I've outlined and getting super sciencey and nerdy with you with the labs, there's so much that conventional methods miss. And so there's a reason, I want you to know this too. There's a reason that you still don't feel fantastic and incredible and amazing and all those other really great words. There's a reason for that. But I also want to tell you that it is always possible. And so I wanted this, by me outlining all these pieces of your labs, I wanted this to also be validation and an encouragement for you. Like, oh, well, that explains why I've been brushed off so many times, right? And why people are saying my labs are fine. But so you can see that there is some possible dysfunction in the body. So that means now we have a starting point. Now I know these things are probably out of whack. Now I have a starting point. And now I know that there's specific things I can address. So I would say starting with the HTMA test package, if you really want the hard data, and that's the only lab that I offer as a standalone lab is the HTMA, the hair tissue and mineral analysis. That's really the easiest way to get started, because it's just one single lab, right? We tie in human design and some other things to it, but it's an easy way to get started. There's have a couple other options. And of course, like the big shebang, like we want to put it and we want to like really go for it. That's the quantum reset. We're doing all the labs. We're doing all the subconscious work. We're doing quantum healing sessions. We're diving in deep to your human design. That's like the whole shebang. So DM me, you can DM me on Instagram Reset. You can email me. All the links are in the show notes below to look at the options and see which one works best for you, which one would be the best fit for you. But I want to tell you this, that you are not meant to just survive, right? You are not meant to just survive. You are not meant to live in a body that's just barely above dysfunction. It's not the vibe. You were meant to thrive. You are meant to thrive in a body that feels safe, that you love, that you can trust, that lights you up. That's what you're meant for. I really, honestly, truly believe that. And I think that what we're talking about here and what I'm going to talk about over the next 4 more episodes, we're going to dive even deeper into that. So if this episode is hitting you in your heart, and you're feeling it already, I want you to share with a friend. And for someone maybe who's been dealing with these things too, have them pull their labs out and they can go through and listen and kind of check in and do kind of a self-assessment here of like, oh, okay, these things could be off. And if you're finally ready to understand your symptoms and reclaim your vitality, reclaim your energy, reclaim your body, then click the link in the show notes and we can chat in the DMs, we can hop on a call, or you can ready to jump in. We have those options too for the quantum reset or the reset or the HTMA test package, the 3 main programs that I have. And let's get started. And I'm excited to bring to you the rest of this series to really help you untangle these pieces so we can really look past the blood work, move beyond the blood work to look at these deeper parts of us that are ready to be brought to the surface, right? These hidden things that could be draining our energy and our life force energy and our vitality. And that's really what it's all about. Can we just bring back our life force energy and vitality so we can thrive in every aspect, our family, our relationships, our business, as a friend, as mom, as business owner, entrepreneur, a person, a human, just a human, right? I'll see you all next time.